Good day and welcome once again, Talkin Fight fans, to another special episode on the Olympics featuring Christian from the Friday night panel. How you doing, Christian?
Oh, not too bad, Graham. You?
Not bad at all, thank you. What have you found out for us today?
Well, based on what you and I were chatting a little bit yesterday, and one of the questions that came up was kind of Olympic records, not individual, but country. Who's got the most medals out there? Who's been doing the most for the sport kind of thing over the years, over the long run? So I thought I'd do a little bit of looking into that this morning and see what we came up with. Pardon me. So, we'll jump right in here today. Because that's something we've mentioned before here. Boxing being one of the oldest recorded sports in the world, boxing was first incorporated into the ancient Olympiad in about 688 BC, when Onomastos of Smyrna won the first ever gold medal in boxing.
Wow.
Yeah. But just 18 athletes competed when boxing was launched into the modern Olympics during the third edition of the Games in St. Louis in 1904. But by London, the London Games 4 years later, that number had grown to 41 athletes split across five weight categories. By Antwerp in the 1920s, in 1920, the Olympic competition was getting a lot stronger. In Belgium, 116 competitors from 12 nations were challenging for medals, with Africa winning its first boxing gold thanks to Clarence Walker, fighting in the bantamweight division for South Africa. It was 8 years later in Amsterdam would be the first time that national teams were limited to fielding one boxer per weight class. Since then, Olympic boxing has evolved and developed and created its own icons, such as guys like Laszlo Papp, who's Hungarian and won 3 consecutive gold medals in 48, the 52, and the 56 Olympics. 4 years later, an 18-year-old Cassius Clay would be writing himself into the history books and starting off his career taking gold in Rome. The first Asian gold medalist would be Japan's Takeo Sakura, who took the title on home soil in Tokyo in 1964. 4 years on from that, we saw a consistently devastating Cuban team first appear on the scene, spearheaded by Teofilo Stevenson, who repeated Papp's feat of a triple gold during the 70s, and then by Felix Savon, who was crowned Olympic champion in 92, 96, and then finally in Sydney in 2000. In 2009, following the IOC meeting, women's boxing, as we know, became part of the official program for the Olympic Games and was first debuted at the London 2012 Games, competing in 3 weight categories, respectively Nicola Adams of Great Britain, Katie Taylor of Ireland, and the US's Clarissa Shields were crowned the first ever female Olympic champions in boxing. Adding 3 new up-and-coming stars to the sport, and some hopefully new careers. So the most successful boxing nations at the Olympics since 1904. Let's take a quick look at our top 10 contenders kind of thing here. U.S. obviously is right on top there with 51 gold, 24 silver, 39 bronze, with a total of 113 overall medals and podium appearances in boxing since 1904. Coming in hot, number 2 is Cuba with 37 gold, 19 silver, 17 bronze, for a total of 73 podium appearances. Third spot goes to the Brits, 18 gold, 13 silver, 25 bronze, 56 overall. Coming in at fourth, the Italians, 15 gold, 15 silver, 17 bronze, 47 overall. And we find our friends the Soviets. They're no longer around, but when they were here, we had 14 golds, 19 silver, 18 bronze for 51 total. Now, right behind that is the Russians. I know it's similar, but obviously post-89 there. The Russian Federation has 10 gold, 5 silver, 15 bronze for 30 overall. Hungarians, helped by Laszlo there, 10 gold, 2 silver, 8 bronze for 20 overall, taking the 7th spot. Poland, 8 gold, 9 silver, 26 bronze, 43 overall. Our only South American entry here in this list, the Argentinians, come in at number 9 for 7 gold, 7 silver, 10 bronze, 24 overall. And finally, we have the Kazakhstanis, 7 gold, 7 silver, 7 bronze, 22 over. And that's our top 10. Russia's total would be slightly higher, except for Misha Aloyan of Russia, who originally won a silver in Rio, but it was disqualified after he tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. Don't do that. Now, these may be our kind of our top dogs for now, but it's worth keeping in mind that, countries like Uzbekistan took home 7 medals in Rio, 3 gold, 2 silver, and 2 bronze. So, they're not on the list yet, but they're not far off it. And we also saw no podiums at the last Olympics from a number of countries that traditionally were doing well. European contenders, Italy, Poland, Hungary, countries like that, where we didn't see any podiums. Oh, and Grant, I should have probably mentioned earlier on here, but there's a couple of things that we should probably keep in mind when talking about those numbers. Firstly, and then we mentioned this a little early on and in one of our past episodes, that prior to the 20s, countries were able to enter more than one athlete per weight class. So, for example, in that 1904 first edition of the Olympic boxing in St. Louis, the Americans took every single medal. Now, this wasn't terribly surprising because they were also the only ones fighting. So similar, the Brits did a similar thing in London in 1908. So it really wasn't until 1920 in Antwerp that we really started to see the field start to kind of expand on an international level. Also, you may have noticed, again, mentioned that we had both Russia and the Soviet Union on that list. So Soviet medals would have included any wins from, athletes from countries like Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, which would have been under Soviet control at that time. But yeah, that just about wraps up, my list of who's been spending the most time at the top of the podium over the last century or so. And I don't know you, I'm looking forward to adding to that list, again, fingers crossed, in July of this year.
Well, according to Japanese Prime Minister, he's fully gung-ho and promises that the games will go on despite the pandemic.
He has an election coming up in October.
Well, I guess he's banking on it. What surprises me about that list, just off the top of my little head, Mexico. I'm blown away because, quite frankly, Mexicans do quite well in the field of boxing in general, professionally.
And with a few podiums at Rio as well. The Mexicans did have a few podiums. I think 2 or 3 podiums at Rio.
So it'd be interesting to see if you, I don't know, whatever let's say 89, because that's when the Soviet Union was split. It'd be interesting to see if you just use that as a cutoff date, say 1990 onward, who's really winning the Olympic medals in boxing.
From 1990. Well, again, a lot of those countries, when you look at a couple of them were on there. So when you have Russia and Kazakhstan, for example, were both on that list, and Kazakhstan would have fallen under Soviet Union pre-80s.
That's what I'm saying. So just if 1990 is, say, the dividing line between equalization, since that point, I'm just curious. Even Canada, like even Ireland. Like where are these countries now in terms of increasing their numbers, given the participation levels? Pretty well.
Well, yeah, that list that I just gave, that was obviously our top 10, starting with gold. So some of those would have been out of order, where you see a country lower on that list has more silvers or bronze than maybe somebody higher on the list I just gave you there, because that was going to be based around gold medals. So someone like us, we fall down on that. We lean pretty heavy on Lennox Lewis when we're talking about Canadian boxing golds.
Quality, not quantity.
Lennox does a lot of heavy lifting for us on the Canadian side of things.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how the women will do, quite frankly, in terms of parity, because quite frankly, with their inclusion in 2012, obviously the distribution of medals going between males and females would also impact that total number count. So
absolutely,
yeah. So it'd be kind of cute. Anyway. Good stuff.
And I mean, Ireland was took one of those first medals. Katie Taylor, we've talked about her before. But other than that, you're looking at the Brits again and the Americans taking those first medals, right? So countries that already have a pretty long boxing history from an Olympic standpoint.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to the Tokyo Olympics. It's we had a fella on the other night who was talking about how he felt when he entered the stadium to be part of the Olympic team, and just that swell of pride, but then how nervous he got prior to his fight. And even though this guy should have won, he lost because he was nervous. So the Olympics is a kind of an equalizer from a psychological perspective that I didn't quite realize until I heard it out of his mouth. And that was just the other night, because I thought everybody who is fighting in the Olympics for a medal was fully prepared. But no, it's not on the same level. So
Oh well, from a physical standpoint, I bet you that they are physically, fully prepared. But yeah, I mean, if it's your first games, your first Olympics, you don't know until you're standing in that ring. You don't know until you're walking into that stadium. It's a lot of pressure.
yeah. Now this Olympic will be a different Olympic because there aren't the people. Well, I don't think there'll be the people in the stands.
I wouldn't think.
I don't think so. So it'll be interesting to see again as an equalizer whether or not these guys who think.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk. I want to see if we can get a couple of Olympic boxers here on the show here to chat with us. I know we spoke on the Friday night panel with Zahir Rahim there,
Yeah.
and he was an Olympic boxer, and he just gave just a little 10-second kind of anecdote just about how odd he found life in the Olympic Village. Not
Right.
even the competition aspect of the Olympics, but just life in the Olympic Village, going into the food court in the Olympic Village and seeing, this international smorgasbord of food from everywhere, and you can't eat any of it because you got to make weight tomorrow.
Right.
So, like things like that, this is what I want to hear from some of these Olympic athletes. I want to hear these behind the scenes stories. I want to know what it's like to try to maintain weight over a 10-day tournament. Things like that, when the pressure is both the mental and emotional pressure is getting to be a bit much, as you mentioned a little earlier.
So we'll find out from actually, you know what? I'll ask the champ himself because he's got a variety of different contacts at the Olympic level. Past.
Excellent. Wow, I'd like to get him on there on here to talk about his experience, and anyone else who is in a position to come on and talk about just their personal experience being an Olympian.
Yeah, we'll get some. We'll find some. There must be tons out there in the world. All right, Christian, thanks very much for that.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you tomorrow. Remember, like, share, subscribe.